Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Since Warzone 2's launch, the game's evolved a little bit. Obviously, we've learned a lot about how the game plays and what works best in a lot of different scenarios. And one of the most important things when you're jumping into Warzone 2 gameplay is being comfortable with your controller, having the best and most optimal settings for your gameplay experience so that you can maximize basically everything, your gunfights, your movement, your looting, everything like that. So today I wanted to go through and sort of refine the best controller settings here for Warzone 2, whether you're playing on PC with controller or of course over on console. So we've got our standard controls. We also have our advanced controls here that we'll go through as well. First up, when it comes to the button layouts, what's awesome this year is that yes, you have a lot of the preset ones here, default, tactical. That's personally what I play on because I like the ability to be able to drop shot using my thumbstick here. And then of course, also having, you know, my melee be the circle button, which is actually programmed to the back of my scuff controller here, which, hey, by the way, early plug, if you're ever trying to get a scuff controller for yourself, WhosImmortal gets you a nice little discount on that. I love my PlayStation 5 Reflex, by far the best scuff ever, but because I got the paddles on the back, I can drop shot, I can melee easier with that, so tactical works for me. There's a lot of good pre-made options here, but the best part about this is you can customize this however you want. If you want to change your keybinds, your inputs here, you can do so. So while I don't think there's necessarily a best button layout for any given play style, you can basically customize this to exactly how you want it to work, which is super convenient. Bumper ping is actually a brand new setting here. As it states here, applies the bumper ping to the current button layout, which inverts tactical and ping buttons and sets the equipment behavior setting to toggle. So that's something that's just for players who might prefer to have that setting as opposed to the more default one where the pings and stuff is D-pad based. So you can definitely mess with that if you want, but I don't see like a necessary gameplay advantage happening because you put this on or off. So you can adjust that as necessary. You will see that as we go through this with a lot of stuff, there are certain things that are very much so preference based, whereas others, there's definitely, you know, data behind it saying this is the true best. Flipping L1 and R1 and whatnot, again, preference based here. If you have a scuff that has digital tap triggers or a controller that has the digital tap triggers, you don't need to worry about that. But obviously, if you want to be able to spam weapons faster, you could always flip to R1 and L1 for your shooting and whatnot, and having you know, the nades with R2 and L2. So that's something to keep in mind if you are, you know, consistently using semi-auto guns, but for most gunplay, you don't really need to mess with that. The stick layout, I always leave as default. You could change this if you want to mess with your thumbsticks, but I think most players go by default as is. Controller vibration, I am always turning this off because it is going to ultimately affect your aim a little bit. It's cool for immersion and whatnot, but in terms of a competitive sense, you don't want your controller vibrating there because that slight little shake might mess up your aim in like really precise moments. So good idea to leave that off. If you have an applicable controller, you might have haptics, and this is something you always want to have off as well. Didn't even realize mine were on, so I'm glad I went through and double checked here. Now, sensitivity is always something that I go through and stagger. Now, for the most part, I do feel like a medium sensitivity is the way to go. If you have too high of a sensitivity for long range, you're not going to be able to be precise enough. And then if you have too low of a sensitivity for close range, you're not going to be fast enough to keep up with enemies that are moving around a lot. So I sit right in the middle at around a 9 or a 10, and then an 8 or a 9 for my vertical. I do keep my vertical slightly lower than my horizontal because vertical is a lot easier to control, so you don't need to have as much movement there for like vertical control and stuff and whatnot there, whereas horizontal, you want to be able to, you know, turn a little bit faster. So I do stagger mine a little bit. We'll talk more of my ADS sensitivities here in just a moment, because these here don't matter too much, but I do have custom ADS sensitivity multipliers underneath the advanced tab that we'll get to here. For basic sensitivity multipliers though, I keep everything at 1 just to keep it consistent. If you want to go through and adjust these, you certainly can, but for overall consistency, when you're going in and out of vehicles, in and out of third person, if you're switching between those playlists a lot, I like the consistency of just having this at 1. Then I don't mess with the vertical aim access either. I don't need to change any of that. It works fine by default. Now, obviously, aim down sight behavior, most players probably want on hold. You could toggle it if you wanted to, but it's going to feel a little bit more unnatural. The change zoom shared input though, I leave just as the basic here, which is sprint, tac, sprint, and then focus. You can only change that zoom by pressing, you know, your usual sprint button like that. So that to me works well. Again, that's a preference based one there. For automatic sprint, you certainly could go for automatic tac sprint, or you could go for automatic sprint. I would have at least one of these on. Personally, I would not leave that off in a competitive sense. And then also just for the sake of your left thumbstick, please save the thumbstick. Don't go destroying your thumbsticks because you have this turned off and you're mashing your thumbstick every time you want to sprint. Put on automatic sprint, or if you're a super aggressive player or you like the slightly faster movement, knowing that it could potentially cost you some fights close range, but overall will help with your movement in general, put on automatic tack sprint. Obviously, there's no slide canceling here, so this isn't as important this year, but having at least one of these on is the right way to go. Equipment behavior, I'm always going to have on hold. My weapon mount, I keep on ADS and melee. Some players like to change that. That's more preference based. This is another big one here, the interact and reload behavior for Warzone. If you want to loot things quickly, just press your interact button once to pick up a gun or to open a chest or to open a safe, rather than having to hold to pick up a gun or holding to open something, which is, you know, a very short amount of time in the grand scheme of things, but ultimately could cost you in a, you know, bang bang situation where you need to get that gun up or you need to open this door or close this door or whatever. Prioritizing interact is going to be the way to go. Now, if you're trying to, you know, play DMZ and get some missions done there, I noticed that if you change to prioritize reload, that's the only way you can actually interact with supply drops and stuff. But for general Warzone gameplay, prioritize interact is absolutely what you want to do there. Then lastly, for the standard settings here, armor plate behavior, always have this on apply all, so you can just press your armor button once and it'll put on as many plates as you need. If you have to interrupt that animation, you always can by YYing or by sprinting and whatnot, so you can interrupt that, but just pressing the button once, obviously way more convenient than having to do it for each individual armor plate. Now, as we get into the advanced settings here, just a reminder, if you are new to the channel, every single day I got you covered with all things going on in COD, so if you want to guarantee you are always up to date, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, join us ultimately on the road to 1 million subs. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Let's try and aim for 2,000 likes on this one. Now, under the advanced stuff here, we've got a lot more, you know, fine-tuned stuff, more detailed stuff. So first up with aim assist, obviously if you're playing on controller, you're probably playing with aim assist on. Target aim assist, I always have on there as is. Now my aim assist type, I am back on Black Ops here, and this actually is going to feel the most consistent in my opinion. There was a couple of days after I think Warzone 2 just dropped where this setting was kind of broken, but they did go through and fix it so that it does feel more consistent and natural. You'll be able to, you know, get that slow down feel and that sort of movement feel if you are trying to use and abuse rotational aim assist, because obviously that's a big thing in this game that probably needs adjusting. Will it ever be adjusted? Who knows, but currently Black Ops is the way to go for the most natural but consistent feeling aim assist option. Then also third person ADS correction type, I keep that on just standard assist here as well. I didn't notice too much of a difference when I tested these settings out. Now for the gyro behavior, this is also a new setting that basically if you have a controller that has the gyro ability active, like I know PlayStation 5 controllers do, you could essentially use it to aim by actually moving your controller you know, up and down in real life rather than just with your thumbsticks. It's a unique setting, but not something that is practical in a competitive sense. You can make guns basically have no recoil with this, but for competitive gameplay, it's got a very high learning curve and something that you're probably not going to be able to, you know, master within a couple of matches of playing. It would take a long time of, you know, building up that muscle memory. So not something that I feel like is super worth it. So I basically leave all that as off. Aim response curve type dynamic, just like back in Warzone 1, is in fact still the way to go. It's that reverse S curve, so everything's going to feel nice and snappy, and it's going to feel nice and consistent whether you're up close range, whether you're mid range, whether you're long range as well. And that's the setting that most of the pros use as well for the most like high octane gameplay there is. Multiplier, I keep on 1. The ADS sensitivity transition, I want that as instant. So the second I go to actually ADS, my sensitivity is going to transfer over to my custom sensitivity per zoom. And this is a very important one as well. This is basically built to optimize, you know, your aim when you're aiming down sights. Of course, you have your standard sensitivity, but then you want to have things change ever so slightly when you are actually aiming down sights. So for some of my closer zooms here, like the low zoom, the 2.3 times, the 4 to 5 times, I do have this slightly slower, so I'm a little bit more precise with those zoom optics, and that's what I'm using most of the time on most rifles, SMGs, LMGs, weapons like that. This will allow you to just be super accurate when you're aiming down sights. But then for some of the further zoom sights, 6 to 7 times, 8 to 9, the high zoom like on snipers, I keep that more on 1 so I can still, you know, obviously move around very fast at long range and have a, you know, accurate shot over, you know, 250 meters, 300 meters for a long range sniper shot. But if I have to quick scope or do anything like that, it's not going to be too slow for any mid-range fights or anything like that. So I felt like scaling it here is going to leave you feeling the most consistent and accurate overall ranges. Now, dead zones, I always want to stress this so much because I'm always getting asked, you know, Zach, what's the best dead zone? There is no best dead zone. This entirely applies to your controller. Some controllers have really bad stick drift, and you might have to change this to, 15. Some controllers have no stick drift, and you can have this on 0.02. So this is totally something you have to test on your own. I would line up with an edge in private match and adjust your dead zone accordingly there, or go into the weapon tuning, and if your tunes are moving on their own left and right, up and down, that means your stick drift and your dead zones are not high enough, so you can turn those up accordingly there. The max I keep at 99, and then the triggers you actually want to put on 0, so you can go through and essentially the second that you hit that actuation point on your trigger, it's going to shoot. There will be no delay whatsoever there, so that's really important to change that to 0 on there too. Movement behaviors, auto move forward, I don't want that on. I want to control my own movements, obviously. Tack sprint, double tap, but that doesn't matter because we do have auto tack sprint on, obviously. The mantles I can't stand in this game, so I basically have them all off. Grounded mantle I want on off. Automatic airborne mantle, I want to be able to still mantle things, so I have that on partial and I can manually adjust that. And then the automatic ground mantle, I don't want to be mantling things if I'm trying to jump shot in a fight, which oftentimes if you have these on will lead to that. So I go ahead and I turn those off, and if you are someone who jump shots frequently, you probably want to turn those off as well. Slide behavior, standard plunging underwater is just movement based. Parachute auto deploy, you definitely want to have that off so you can get as low to the ground as possible and manually deploy your chute. That way you can get to the loot faster, you can get to the ground faster than anyone who has this on, where they'll be forced to pull their chute at that certain threshold, which is going to have you slow falling and potentially get you killed because you're going to be an easy target slow floating with your parachute out just above the ground. Sprinting door bash, I do want this on, especially once they add in the ability to actually door bash through everything while plating. That's going to be nice. Ledge hang, I want that as mantle only because the movement based, I'm not really a huge fan of. It seems like it's sometimes accidentally forcing you over things when you don't want to. Stick swap I keep on off. The backpack alternative control I also do have on off. I tried playing with this on and it just felt a little bit more unnatural. Like, I'm still not a huge fan of the backpack inventory system in general. It's definitely more refined for keyboard and mouse and smooth for keyboard and mouse, but having this off, I mean, I'm used to that and that's what I'm the most comfortable with. If you have this on, or if you want to try it with on and it feels more comfortable for you, of course go for that. Weapon mount exit I have on, but I have that as a short delay, so it's going to be the fastest possible in and out there. I don't like the weapon automatically switching when I do run out of ammo. I want to be able to manually control that, so I have that on off. Quick C4 detonation allows you to blow up one C4 at a time, so that's nice. I do keep that on. Vehicle camera recenter, you want that on short, then the free look there as well for the initial position. For the scoreboard, I have that on toggle, and these things are moderate here. That's not too important. That's more so preference based for like the emotes and the pinging and whatnot. So, requesting to join a squad, it's just moderate there, works fine, and that's what it is by default, I believe. And then the wheel menu is hold as well. So that stuff is not really too crazy with gameplay, but those are the new and improved best controller settings here for Warzone 2, and that's going to wrap things up. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you are new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.